Welcome back to the show. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. Well, I just got done wrapping a show with Good Morning Crypto. Shout out to Johnny Crypto and Abs. What a great conversation it is, and it's always nice to catch up with them. I think the world of them, and they will be at XRP Las Vegas, and you can too. Go to xrplasvegas.com and get your tickets today. But in our conversation today, we hit a few strides that I feel is worth highlighting today in our second video for today. Take a listen how we touch on the idea that there's so much going on revolving around the world. And I believe that it all ties back in to the new digital on-chain economy and the transformation we're making to the monetary system and the traditional economy itself. We start right here at this clip. I hope you guys enjoy this. And again, shout out to Good Morning Crypto for having us. Take a listen here. And to add to the conversation, it's so interesting that where we are today, that because I believe there's so many things happening outside of crypto that are directly related to crypto, even still, like tariffs, for instance. Look at tariffs. You just talked about, we got supply trade wars going on. Well, that's what tariffs are about. Today, in fact, is Liberation Day. And the pessimism in this market is greatly been affected because there's all kinds of investors and companies around the world that are concerned about what this looks like for the first time when we see this rolled out, reciprocal tariffs. What will that impact be economically? So people are pulling back, whether it's the crypto market or stocks or what have you. I don't think it matters. I think it's all connected. And to go even further with the tariff conversation and how the sentiment is kind of putting pressure on the market right now until they're sure about how this is going to be dealt with or received. When that opens up, I think it goes crazy good for all of us. But I also believe that think about what's taking place. If you're having these tariffs put in place at the same time, we just saw an executive order signed for the Treasury to modernize its payment system. What else did we see at the same time? We see the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, scanning every government agency for waste, fraud, and abuse. I've told people on my channel, well, that is because on its face, they need to scan and get those things eliminated. But especially because I've been saying they're going to tokenize this and put the government agencies on blockchain. We don't know what it'll be yet, but they're going to do it. And then, lo and behold, we saw an executive order to do exactly that with the Treasury, right? Well, then you come back into the tariffs again, right? What are tariffs really about? Manipulation, right? They're about manipulation from other countries where it's not fair. And just to be clear, when someone pays a tariff, the governments aren't paying the tariffs. You know what I mean? The companies that are selling goods into those places are paying the tariffs, for clarity. And that's why it'll be felt, and it'll be a sticky point for 5 or 6 months to see kind of what takes place. But I feel like going into summer, end of summer, we'll be having that legislation for crypto get signed. And then we're talking about the last half of that year being a real potential for a huge breakout. But everything that we're seeing, I think now at this point, is tied into digital assets and value protocols, because we're going to see blockchain implemented for supply trade, just like we're seeing the modernization of the Treasury, right? We're going to see all of this take place. Just to step outside for a second, look at the Panama Canal where China's trying to take that over. That's a U.S. territory. Well, guess what? If that was on blockchain, this wouldn't be a conversation now, would it?
Right.
This is what I mean. Everything is connected. The idea of getting Greenland because of the powerful geographical location for strategic defense through shipping and supply trade lanes, right? So all of that's important, just like Panama's an issue that makes Greenland in play. The Gulf of America instead of the Gulf of Mexico. So they can do what? Drill, baby, drill. Why is that? Because they're trying to bring manufacturing back home. Well, that's what the tariffs come in play for, because they don't want to pay the tariff. Well, then build it here, make it here. all of this is tied in because we're going through a transformational age, the golden age, as this administration calls it. And I keep saying from almost the first day on my channel, this is the greatest financial paradigm shift in the history of mankind, and it cannot be overstated. And it's now unfolding right before our eyes.
Well, Brad, I've often said it, and I've said it since January 1st, Johnny Crypto. You may even get tired of winning as a crypto investor here in 2025. And what I think a lot of people are underestimating on other crypto channels, Brad, is that what we've seen in the past is a 4-year cycle. What we've never had is a U.S. presidential administration that's not only willing to work with these companies, they're having meetings, they're building products, and they're even talking about improving traditional systems using blockchain. So
he's exactly right. And let's carry this conversation to the next point.
And here's what's exciting, Brad, because a lot of people will talk about regulation. We're going to have an ETF discussion this morning. A conversation that I feel like is not being had nearly enough is the reduction in capital gains tax post-regulation. And this has been my bold prediction here on Good Morning Crypto. We'll see if it comes to fruition, guys. One's in the chat if you agree, two's in the chat if you disagree. I believe that once digital asset classification is passed, probably sometime in late August to early October, we can start deciding what the capital gains tax should be, and there will almost definitively be a reduction in crypto capital gains. Now, the reason for that, the majority of these assets are going to be considered commodities, right? So I think this is something that Howard Lutnick has been outspoken about. Eric Trump stated when he was speaking in Dubai, my father made a promise to create a Bitcoin reserve and to reduce capital gains tax on digital assets. That is his son saying that on stage. He knows he's being recorded. So I believe this stuff is not only happening in the background, Brad, it may come to fruition in 2025. So can we get some thoughts on that? Do you think we're going to see a reduction in capital gains post-regulation in the U.S.?
Look, I love it. It's a great question, Abs. It has been floated, zero capital gains on U.S. domiciled digital assets, right? We know that. Here's what I'll say. First of all, yes, I want it. You know, yeah, let's do that like yesterday if we could. I was just talking to my accountant this morning, so let's get that done this right away. Let's chop 5 minutes ago. Yeah, but listen, will we get that for everyone? I don't know. Maybe we see. Look, I believe the value protocols that have utility to move the money for the financial system will be given some kind of grace. And the reason I believe that is because Trump wants to dominate. Because, look, I heard Cristiano Carlos say this one time a long time ago. He who controls the gold makes the rules. That's an old adage. Then Chris added this. He who controls the payment rails runs the world. And that's the problem we've been having. See, like I said, all these things actually tie back into, see, I'm not here for green candles. So this space to me is tied into everything geopolitical and political and the whole bit. Look at the sanctions on Russia through SWIFT. They were worthless. They didn't do anything. Russia ended up making the ruble stronger after the sanctions than before because they did workarounds. Well, you can't do that with the new world we're going to, right? So to me, this is all tied in what we're seeing here. Now, Abs, remind me really quickly, what was your first initial question there? Because I got sidetracked. I wanted to track that.
Will we have a capital gains tax reduction in 2025?
Gotcha. So now getting back to the capital gains thing. Thank you. I got sidetracked. So the capital gains issue, if you look at this, how important it is on a geopolitical stage, we're talking about fixing SWIFT, not being able to do a workaround SWIFT. Who really runs SWIFT, even though it's in Belgium? The U.S. with the sanctions, right? So if you have these capital gains eliminated on the value protocols that are domiciled in the U.S., instantly they become the most desirable place to move value. Period. Full stop. There is an idea, though, that it will be the money transmitter licenses and the banks that may get the zero capital gains because they'll be the major flow using it for money and not investment. A retail holder may find themselves with a smaller tax cap gain exposure, right? But they don't move money around for payments and in a business. So then obviously you're held to probably some capital gain structure. But you know what? I guess it would be great if we could get a world where we all have zero capital gains on an XRP or other US domicile protocols. We'll have to see how that comes about. But, I don't want to sidebar this whole flow, but you're touching on some things that I think are so important, Abs. Like the things in Johnny too, like the things you guys are bringing up here tie back into a much larger narrative to me. Like, I mean, well, what would be the point of all of this, right? Well, the point of all of this is to get the United States economy back on track, right? Eliminating the waste and fraud, getting us to reciprocal tariffs, and getting everybody to bring the prices down or bring them up to match. However, it's got to go. All of this is a paradigm shift. You're talking about a paradigm shift to the entire financial industry here. So this, to me, is like a super, super amazing moment that we're going through, because everything that we're about to see is getting tokenized. Everything of value is going to be tokenized onto these protocols. So how would you do that? How would you give Abs, Johnny, and Brad, and everybody in this chat zero capital gains on XRP? And it could be other assets too in the US. I'm just saying XRP for the conversation. And why? Why would you do it? Well, blockchain is instantaneous. You can get the transaction right now. You got the money. If I buy something from Abs and Johnny, then it's settled in seconds, right? And whatever I bought, a product, good, or service, I get that right in my hand. Boom, it's done. You got the money, I got the good, service, or product. Well, guess what? We're on blockchain. Let's go one step further. And the government get their cut too. If we go to a fair use consumption tax, I can see them shifting everything. The ERS, External Revenue Service, get the money coming in from a new place so we don't income tax everyone. That's where this is going. And I think over time they'll get there, because if you look at it, you have with blockchain the ability to walk into a store, pay for a good product or service, and instantly the merchant gets what belonged to them, and the 23% goes directly to the government on blockchain. There's nothing left to talk about. There's no taxes to file at the end of the year. It's over. You're putting more money back in people's pockets so they can spend and buy more things or invest in themselves or their own companies. And look, what is the point of going to blockchain and all this fancy new shit we got if you're going to put us on the same, but save all your paperwork because we're going to need you to file at the end of the year? None of this makes sense. It's an injustice to the technology to not move to this position. I'm becoming more resolved by the day on it. So I'm sorry for the long diatribe there, but that's what I got.
That's why we got you on here, Brad. So
there you have it. Look, I mean, I really do think this is a look into where the world is going, maybe 2030, on. And, in some regards, I really do feel like if we don't move to a consumption tax, we're missing a hell of an opportunity for innovation and honestly, and to free the citizens of the layers and layers of burdensome tax.
This is why
What if they look, remember, he who controls the payment rails rules the world. What's the largest stable coin that does more transactions than anything? Is it a euro stable coin or is it a US dollar stable coin?
US dollar.
So if we control the rails with the most money on it, who stands to make the most transactions or most tax collection on transactions if you go to a consumption tax?
US dollar.
The US dollar in the United States of America, my friends. That's where this play's going right here. I will remind everybody that Donald Trump from 45 is different from Donald Trump from 47, right? But don't forget that Ripple met and R3 met with President Trump in his 45 term. That happened, okay? And there was an executive order to have mention of these companies too. So it's not lost on him where this is going. Yeah, there's just so much here, and I hope I'm not derailing the show today. I don't mean to do that. I really feel it. Like, this is where this is for me and where I'm sitting. And obviously I'm biased because I'm in this space for the last 7 years. So everything I see is through this light. So maybe some of it's not right. Maybe you guys will speak to the home and I'm going back. I don't know. It's just, I feel like this is where we are. Right? This is where we are. And this is about preserving the US dollar for the next 150 years or more. The best way to do that is to lock in the value protocols, make them dominant. Why would I give free cap gains to people holding the asset? Because if they use the network and I move to a consumption tax, I'll get all that back plus. Plus, well, wouldn't I do it? Not to mention the fact that if you're using our US dollar, maybe if you're on my value protocol, that consumption tax also applies to you in Dubai because you use my US dollar.
Mhm.
Now I just did tax collection and I'm not even in the fucking US anymore.
Right.
ESR, ESR, baby.
Oh, you used the real USD in Brazil, did you? Well, consumption tax. You know, I don't know if it goes that far or touches that reach, but if it does, watch out because there'll be so much collection of money for this country. We will be so rich as a nation. It will scare the shit out of people. I mean, it really will. And then lock in that we're locking down. Look, I think the map in the globe is going to look different in another 4 years because you're going to have some places become America that weren't before, some territories, things of this nature. Because the reality is that this play that's happening, it isn't just a play to conquer. Nobody's out here conquering shit. It's a strategic play to lock in where we're going to be for the next 150 or 300 years because they're going to tokenize all the territories of the world and put it on blockchain. There's no more I went in and took Crimea. It's not on the blockchain at your house. It's at their house, right? Or whatever the rule is. And the truth is, we're doing our history. All that shit belonged to Russia beforehand. I'm just telling you what the math is. I didn't say I got a flag at the house. I'm just telling you what the math is on the shit. You do with it what you want. But think about where we're going. So many people get lost in green candles and chasing this and chasing that. They're really not connected. The big picture is where it's at because the big picture helps me on days like this when it's really down and pessimistic. The last 4+ years, we're in a down spot right now, but I'm not discouraged because when I look at all those things that I just laid out for you, I couldn't be more excited about where this is going. I couldn't be more confident. It gives me the confidence to exercise my discipline to continue to fill my bags.
Agreed, Brad. And you know what keeps me excited is that there's just so many optimistic catalysts in front of us. And I outlined them.
No doubt about it. This was a great conversation, guys. I'm going to leave it right there. I've got so many meetings and stuff for XRP Las Vegas and things to do there. I wanted to release this just because the conversation went somewhere I didn't even expect it to go, and it went to such a great place. And again, I want to shout out to Johnny and Abs for bringing me on and getting that conversation started. But I'm so glad that we were able to tackle some of these things, and I hope you guys enjoy it, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. All right, that's going to do it for me, guys. The world is changing. And what does crypto and what does this world, more importantly, look like 2030 and beyond? I'll catch all of you on the next one.